Welcome to the Monday, March 14th, regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. We will now have Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin this evening with presentations, and our first presentation will be Mr. Sean Bernardowitz giving us an update on Penguin Elementary School.
There's no cursor. Thank you. Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Mr. Copeland. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight to speak on behalf of Penguin Elementary. The slides in the PowerPoint include a few from orientations held at Penguin Elementary, along with a sampling of some resources and student work created by our students as part of the initiative that I'll talk about tonight. When families are welcome to Penguin Elementary, we share these slides with our kindergarten, first grade, and new students. We share with our families that as important as there are many lessons that their children will be learning over the course of the years that they are with us at Penguin Elementary. We emphasize that as important as the academic lessons are, we also emphasize the importance of the learning that we believe is equally important, is that they learn and grow and develop as contributing members of the Penguin school community. This year, the Penguin faculty and staff have undertaken an initiative to systematically address the topic of race and its implications for our school. Last spring, we convened a community-based meeting at Bethel Academy on the heels of a number of racially based incidents. In our conversations with members of the community, two clear themes emerged. The first message that came through loud and clear was that we were at a point where we needed to have explicit conversations with our kids focused on race. The second message was that these conversations can and should begin with our youngest learners in kindergarten. For years, members of the Penguin faculty and staff have engaged with our parents and guardians in discussions on race in our Penguin Cultural Proficiency Discussion Group. We were encouraged by our parents and guardians to take these hard conversations that we were having as adults and bring them to every child in Penguin in every classroom. From this charge, we began the process of creating what has become known as CP for Kids. Cultural Proficiency for Kids consists of 3 lessons taught in every grade from kindergarten through 5th grade. Our goal was to have at least 18 opportunities over the course of the 6 years the children are entrusted to our care where the topic of race was explicitly discussed in developmentally appropriate ways. Over the course of the summer, Mrs. Partridge and I worked with over 30 faculty and staff members who came in to help develop these lessons. Mrs. Partridge shared with these individuals research related to the racial identity development process that students go through as a basis for our lessons. We identified a series of enduring understandings that we used to guide our work in the development of the specific lessons. We identified a variety of literature resources that we could use in order to serve as the basis of many of our lessons. As we developed each of the lessons, we established a goal of identifying how we could support parents and guardians to extend these conversations in their homes. Our hope was that by providing parents and guardians with activities, suggested questions, or conversation starters, they would be able to engage their children on this topic and further the discussion. On the day that each lesson is taught, a parent-guardian letter goes home, giving them a summary of the lesson and providing them with the extension of suggestions. Once we had these 18 lessons developed, we solicited parent and guardian feedback and input. We shared the lessons with parents and guardians in a number of open sessions over the summer and into the fall. We invited them to provide us with feedback from their parent-guardian lens. This feedback was then returned to the teachers who had written the lessons so that they could make any edits or necessary revisions. As we deliver the lessons, we collect teacher reflections from all of our teachers on the lessons taught, gathering information about how the children responded, any improvements that we should make as we move forward, and any parent or guardian feedback that they had received. A sampling of these reflections include the following. A kindergarten teacher reported that her students were actively engaged and responded in a positive way. They especially enjoyed looking at themselves in the mirror to examine and celebrate their uniqueness. They agreed that no skin color was better than any other and that they were all beautiful. A third grade teacher reported that her students love relating the book Colors of Us to the delicious colors that they could use to describe themselves, and how they understood from Bill Nye, the science guy, that we are all the same underneath while also deliciously different on the outside. A fourth grade teacher reported that some of her kids had questions that would spur continued discussion into the next week and throughout the year. For me, this speaks to the success of this initiative. We had fourth grade kids talking about race, posing questions that would sustain a conversation throughout the course of the year. This is the type of outcome that we could have only had hoped for at the onset. Finally, we received this letter from one of our youngest parents and guardian, the parent of one of our youngest learners. Mr. B and Ms. D'Amico, I want to provide some feedback on the cultural proficiency lessons that have been taught at Penguin this year. They have been amazing. As you are aware, Hannah is biracial. My husband, Hannah's father, is African American, and I am Caucasian. We were always aware that eventually we would need to discuss this with Hannah, as she would have questions. Shortly after these lessons began, Hannah came home one evening and told us, "Daddy is brown and Mommy is white." She then went on to tell us that she was quote-unquote light brown. For a few days, she told us that she did not like being light brown because she didn't look like Mommy and she didn't look like Daddy. We spent a great deal of time explaining she was a mixture of us both. Originally, that did not sit well with her. However, as race and color were discussed at school, we could begin to see that Hannah was having a stronger sense of herself. She came home about a week later and told us that she was happy that she was light brown. She went on to tell us that if everyone looked the same, it would be really boring. She also explained that flowers look different, but all smell nice. Without these lessons she learned in school, I do not feel that Hannah would be as comfortable with herself. Martin Luther King has always been someone that we celebrate in our home. Hannah will often tell people, "Dr. King fought so that we could be a family." She was truly delighted when there were discussions about Martin Luther King in school. She learned different things that he accomplished, and it truly made her proud. Recently, Hannah learned about Rosa Parks. She came home wanting to discuss this for hours. She was explaining to us that brown people had to sit in the back of the bus. She asked us where would I sit since I was light brown. She was also upset because she felt that we would not have been able to sit as a family on the bus because Daddy would have been in the back and Mommy would have been in the front. In time, she realized that we would not have been a family during this time, and she was able to see some of the accomplishments that have been made in time. I know that cultural differences do not have to be discussed at school. However, I will never be able to thank you enough for the discussions that have occurred at school. Bringing this information into your curriculum has been the best experience for Hannah and our family. It helped us discuss difficult issues, and Mrs. D'Amico really explained things in a way that Hannah could understand. She feels special and unique as a result of the cultural proficiency lessons that have been taught. She knows that everyone is different, but that everyone is special. For that, I thank you. Thank you for not shying away from discussing difficult issues, but instead embracing them and helping the children to understand history. They will be more compassionate and better people for these lessons. Nancy Davis, mother of Hannah Davis. We feel that we are only at the very beginning of what we expect to be a long and fruitful journey. We wish to thank the faculty and staff of Penguin Elementary for taking up the challenge that we put before them and for the many hours that they have put into this undertaking. We thank the parents and guardians who have engaged in this process with us. And we thank you, the Board of School Directors, for creating an environment in which embarking on this type of journey is encouraged and supported as we continuously strive to provide the children entrusted to our care with the skills and the mindsets necessary not only to learn how to read and to write, but to also be contributing members of the Lower Merion School District. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very optimistic what I'm hearing. But my question for you is, what it sounded like to me is this is, again, very fits in with our strategic plan of making our kids feel like they do belong here. Like that is part of, I don't know if you could speak to how you see this fitting into the strategic plan, if you don't mind.
Sure. I'll look to Mrs. Partridge. She has been part of the steering committee for the strategic plan, and we've had this conversation many times about the connections that we see between the strategic plan and this initiative.
Hi, good evening. Really good question. I see it in two or threefold places. I see it first as culturally responsive teaching and learning. I see it as an excellent example of transformative curriculum. And with the teacher PRP in the beginning of the year, I also see it as staff development.
Thank you to Mr. Bernatowitz and Ms. Partridge for being here. One of the pieces just I wanted to add and have you talk a little bit about as well are the monthly meetings that you have with staff and parents that have kind of grown into what you shared this evening. If you could speak a little more to that, that'd be great.
Sure. We have been meeting, we started the Penn Cultural Proficiency Group a number of years ago. Initially, we started with mostly faculty and staff coming together to engage in conversations around race and its implications in classrooms. We started with a book study, and from that it grew. We got to a point where we were comfortable enough that we invited parents and guardians to join us. And we have had, over the years, a number of parents and guardians. The numbers, have ebbed and flowed, to be honest. It's a challenge to find a good time and a good location, or a good time for everyone to make it. Things that work for parents sometimes don't work for teachers, but we have mixed it up. We've had mostly morning meetings. We do morning meetings with faculty and staff, and again, with parents and guardians joining us. We've had a couple of community-based meetings as well. We've been out to both Bethel and also Zion as well for meetings where we have opportunities to engage with our parents and guardians around these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the invitation to attend the, what's it called, the Taste of Penwyn. And I got to go, and you were on stage dancing with.
And hopefully none of those pictures have made it anywhere.
I've got pictures on my phone if anyone wants to see them afterwards. But what I wanted to comment on was how much you seem to have made this, it's part of the fabric of your school. As soon as you walk into the school, you can feel what's going on, and you guys have done a really excellent job of making this the culture of your institution, and you should be very proud of that.
Thank you. We do work very hard at that. I just recently had a parent, I call them shoppers, somebody came in from the West Coast, asked if I could show her around a little bit, and she said, how do you describe the culture of your school? And my description is we're very organic. I said we have a wide variety of kids here, and the variations of our kids go across not just culture and race, but also sociocultural and different identities, different family configurations. It's just a very organic feel that we feel very proud of at Penwyn.
Thank you also for the presentation. And Hannah is where you want to be, ultimately. Now, I just want to, is she the exception in her family, or are there more people still trying to be a part of the cultural, proficiency thing other than Hannah?
I don't know that Hannah is the exception, but my interpretation would be is that for Hannah and her family, this is not a choice. So this is something that they have to talk about. Many of our families engage in these conversations. We've gotten good feedback that parents and guardians are appreciative of the conversation starters, and they can bring things up at dinner. So when they say, what'd you do at school today, it's not nothing. They actually have a little something to go back at their child with and say, well, didn't Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so talk about this today, and then trigger. So I think for our families such as Hannah, it's something that, is much more prevalent for them as far as, needing to talk and wanting to talk about it, and just being very appreciative of the fact that we're willing to engage in that conversation.
Thank you both for coming and sharing what obviously is a success at Penwyn. I'm going to ask you to at least hang around for a little bit, because there's an off chance that Penwyn might be discussed again at some point tonight. We have another presentation. This past Thursday, we had a presentation from the Facilities and Purchasing Committee giving us an update on where we are with our facilities planning. And Dr. Van Lynch had asked that we give another presentation to the whole board so that it could be discussed this evening. Before we begin, I'd just like to sort of present or provide some context for this evening's presentation on an update on facilities. You know, public schools as an institution inhabit a place in government organizations that's different than our brethren at the federal, state, or even the local governing board level. We have, frankly, little, if any, control over the one thing that drives most of our resources, and that's our enrollment. So, you know, whether it's through ordinances or through planning committees or whatever, you can make a determination about how many housing units you'll allow and so forth and so on. When we are the recipients of that. And so we make our decisions based on, frankly, decisions that others have made or things that are outside of our control. In one district I was in, a change in the, during the recession of 2008, 2009, we saw wide swings in enrollment that had nothing to do with anybody's planned efforts. It just happened to do with the economy. So when people speak of a long-range plan, and this has happened to me in districts past, they'll say, well, if we do X, can you guarantee something is going to happen in the future? And I don't have that level of prognostication. It must be understood that long-range planning is mostly about making decisions based on current and ongoing information. So we make the best decisions that we can based on the information that we have, and we update that information as things change. Stability would be great. I haven't been so lucky. In one district I was in, we had increases, and another district decreases, and we were faced with the need to actually close elementary schools, not for the lighthearted, I would say to you. So the administration, before I came to the district, began seeing real concerns with growth around 2012, and at that time commissioned an enrollment study with DeJean Healy, a demographer, and it was that time that they brought Gilbert Architects into the group. Again, in the fall of 2014, another demographic study was initiated, this time using Montgomery County planning. That produced, last April, in 2015, a report, and that showed steady growth in the district. During the course of last summer, we continued to see spikes in enrollment and commissioned another demographic update following the September 10th day enrollment. Now, the 10th day enrollment, because of where things fell and with the papal visit, school didn't really get going until towards the end of September. September produced that next report, which I'll outline in a second. So we're going to talk about, Pat, if you could move towards the presentation. I'm going to ask you to move the slides for me as I get going. So as he gets in place. So as the administration began working with our professionals, we kept 4 central tenets in mind. One, a long-standing value in keeping class size low. This has been an important brand of the Lower Merion School District for many, many years. Secondly, we have a commitment to neighborhood schools, so the kids stay as close to their neighborhood schools as possible. Third, program enhancements. Whether those program enhancements be a world language program in the elementary schools, whether it be an art program, which, by the way, if you haven't looked at some of the magazines and materials and the art shows that went on, I can't believe that we're second to none. Those enhancements include having 2 high schools so that you have twice as much activities, opportunities for kids. Those program enhancements, I think, are important to the Lower Merion School District, important as we move forward. And finally, we wanted to make sure that we represented well being a public school. We serve all children. The essence of what public schools are proud of, what sets us apart from independent schools, in fact, is that we value, actually we revel in the notion that our only requirement is that you live here. No special entrance tests. We take everybody and we do as great a job as we possibly can. And so those were the 4 tenets that we kept in place as we made recommendations for the board. So, Pat, can you go to the next slide? This is mostly Mr. Ganan and Ms. Hoffer's show, but I'll just give you some slides that we gave you in the past. This shows a 10-year enrollment history, and it shows that in the last 6 years, we've seen an increase of about 20%. One of our schools, Penn Wynne, actually showed 30%, I think within that same period of time. Is that right, Pat?
Yes.
Okay. So you can see that we are currently at 8341. Actually, if we were to look at the actual numbers today, it's at about 80, what was it, 80, I'm looking at 31 more. So we've gained 31. Thank you, Denise. Take a look at the next slide, please. What this indicates is what we asked our enrollment specialists to do. We said, look, it seems like over the last several years, Lower Merion's numbers have exceeded our expectations. Now, when you figure an enrollment profile of a district, in some ways it's really simple math. What you do is you take the number of students who are born in a particular school district, and then over a period of time, you keep track of how many of them end up going to the local school district. It's called a cohort survival. So let's suppose, for instance, 500 kids are born in a community, and over a period of time, 80% of those kids end up showing up in the school district. The year that 600 kids show up, or 400 kids, you take 80% and you say, that's what's going to show up. It hasn't worked that way in Lower Merion. More students have shown up than the live birth cohort survival. So what we asked the Montgomery County Planning Commission to do is go back and see what they could do to give us better numbers. Instead of looking at 6-year progression models, their term, not mine, they looked at 3-year progression models, which seems to fit closer to what our experience has been. And if you look at that, it says by 2020, we look to be a district of somewhere around 9,000 students. Now, that's based on a number of calculations, including that live birth, okay? Then you see a big, heavy line there, right? Everybody says yes? Okay, good. The big, heavy line is there because beyond that, since you don't have live births, even though they haven't followed, you really need that to mix into the calculation. But if you look at the trends, our demographers are saying you could have a number that's around 9,800 by 2024, 2025. Each year there's a live birth, and each year there's an increase of students coming into the school. You adjust those numbers. So it's a rolling, ongoing process. Next slide, Pat. What this slide basically says is if you look at our 6 elementary schools, HPE is highest projected enrollment. At their peak, you can see that Belmont Hills would be 541, Kinwood 599, Gladwin 793, Marion 616, Penn Valley 723, Penn Wynne as much as 823. And next to that, in the next column, would indicate the number of classrooms that would be needed to accommodate those students. Now, those classrooms needed would be additional classrooms. So in some cases, like in Penn Wynne, they've already given up 2 large group instruction rooms. It would not return those rooms. We're hoping that if it doesn't hit 6, 2 of those might eventually be able to be returned as core spaces. But what's happening is, so far, Marion Elementary has lost their music room, I believe. So music's on a stage. Some of the classrooms, because of increased enrollment, have had art in the classroom. So you can see the numbers of students coming into the district is impinging on the ability to provide those enhancements. Next slide. This slide demonstrates year by year. If we went back to the other slide, this slide represents year by year the anticipated growth and the need for classrooms as you move forward. And this only goes to 2021. Next slide. This is a repeat of a slide, and by the way, this will reside on our website, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so folks will be able to take a look at this, but this gives some options for each elementary school. For the board's sake, this is a repeat of what they saw back in November, and it indicates, based on projections by our architects and our construction managers, what the cost of building new and keeping temporary classrooms would be. And the next slide is the number of classrooms and the total cost by square foot. Next slide. At one point, we looked at building a kindergarten center, and the board still may consider it, but the kindergarten center by the church property at near Welsh Valley. The difficulty with that is because it was once discussed as a kindergarten center, because we have half-day kindergarten, it doesn't necessarily relieve as many classes from the elementary schools as you'd need. So you'd still have to build about a $30 to $40 million center, and you wouldn't necessarily have to be without building some classes by the schools themselves. Also, it would most likely require an additional bus run. So the operational costs of the kindergarten center are pretty high. Next slide. We've moved, I think, expeditiously and quickly to look at some near and long-term plans. I'll talk about some near-term plans in just a second, but the strategies for long-term: continue alterations, do some in-depth planning, and continue to present to the community for review and comment. So, next slide, required for 2016, 2017, additional classrooms at Penn Win are going to have to happen because Penn Win is growing, as I mentioned before, at a much quicker rate than even the rest of the district. So we're looking to install temporary classrooms during the summer of 2016 and review the requirements as we continue. The board is scheduled to make a final decision about permanent construction in May, I believe. Is it the May date? Somebody shake your head like, yes, I think it was May. Was it May? Okay, Pat has shaken his head. I'll take that as a good one.
That's the plan.
That's the plan, okay. So, alternate near-term strategies. Next slide, Pat. The last thing we want to do, even though it's listed first, is to give up art and music rooms. And that only happens if students come and we don't have alternatives. So to avoid giving up these rooms, we're looking at two other plans, N+1. What's happened traditionally in the district is let's take second grade, for example. The second grade class size target is 22 students in a class. What's traditionally happened is if a 23rd student comes, they get placed in the class. If another student comes, you have two classes with 23, and if another student comes, the district has created 5 classes. We're recommending that you at least go to the 4th class with 23 students in a class, and then if another comes, you create the 5th class. But what happens if you create the 5th class? Well, if you create the 5th class, your target number of students drops well below 22, right? So you'd say, well, there's plenty of room for those kids to enter in those classes where the class size is just dropped. Well, that only works if they move to the school that I've got the places. If people would move where I asked them to, we'd have a lot easier situation, but that doesn't seem to be the strategy. So we move to a third possibility, and that's implementing a partner school possibility. Next slide, Pat. So, one more, please, Pat. So the partner school plan, which the board has just passed as a second reading, would work like this. If there are those empty places, empty classrooms in the schools, and somebody moves in new to the community, rather than guarantee them a space in that school, we would provide transportation to a school where the class sizes are optimal. And we've got a plan in place for that, It would not involve anybody who currently lives in the district. We would make June 1st as the cutoff. When we first mentioned this, we know there was a lot of concern about this in the community, but when we looked at it against, losing those core spaces or raising class size to stay within the structure of the values of the district, we feel that this is a strategy that would work for us. It's one that some of us have used in the past, and this is a way to alleviate some of the issues that we've got there. Next slide, please, Pat. So, recommendations. We're moving ahead with the temporary classrooms. We've been to the planning board of the Board of Commissioners. We expect that they will approve some plans for us this coming Wednesday. And we have already developed a policy to implement partner schooling, and we will begin to finalize plans for the remainder of the enrollment growth in the district. Before I turn it over to Pat and the others, are there any questions, comments, or concerns over what I just said? I see Dr. Gilbert leaning forward with anticipation, looking to charge.
I'm not looking to charge. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very helpful. I do have a question about the approval that we're expecting on Wednesday night from the Board of Commissioners to place the temporary classrooms. I understand that one of the conditions of approval is that there's a working group that's being formed to discuss issues related to traffic and those kinds of issues. Will we have representation of the Penguin HSA on that working group?
Initially, my understanding is that the Penguin HSA was not part of it. We are going to ask that the Penguin, the Penguin HSA is part of it. As part of our roll-up to this situation, we've had meetings not only with the Civic Association, but we've had very, very helpful meetings with the Penguin HSA. So we think that they're a vital part of the process.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Right. I was listening Thursday when Dr. Van Lynch mentioned that. So we have one of the co-presidents who's going to participate with this. I can't recall the name offhand.
Mr. Copeland, I do have a question as
Sure.
well. Can you share the meetings that you've had at Penguin in terms of meeting with the Civic, meeting with the HSA, talking to the school community around the decisions that the board is confronting in terms of ensuring we maintain class size at Penguin?
So I think we met first with the HSA Executive Committee in the fall, I'll say. I can't remember exactly the date. We also met with the Penguin faculty. We also met with I think we met with the HSA as an entire group in the Civic Association, all before the winter break.
Actually, our joint meeting with HSA and the Civic was early January. But then we had a dedicated Civic meeting, or we were invited to come to a Civic meeting at the beginning of February, which we did.
Well, January, December, it's winter.
Great, thank you. And I just want to add that I know on the Penguin website, all the presentations that have been had and the conversations and dialogue around the potential construction and also the temporaries is extremely accessible to the community.
Can you, in these community meetings, can you just tell us some of the concerns that were brought up?
Well, sure. Clearly, Penguin is in a location where there's not a lot of room in terms of either access or field space. It's a fairly built up. So we've had a lot of conversations about traffic, had a lot of conversations about the possibility of walk areas, and in fact, we even had some recommendations about alterations about where to put the temporary classrooms and recommendations on where to put just a complete change in design. So we've taken all of those seriously. Some of those, I think as the board knows, would significantly raise the cost of construction, but we think we've tried as hard as we could to vet all of the concerns, and that's an ongoing process. So we were not at all concerned that part of the conditions for approval talked about an ongoing collaborative process, because that's just what we do. So, Mr. Ganan, would you like to continue?
Yes, we're going to go ahead and review with you the plans for the temporary classrooms and then talk about some ideas and options for adding on to the school on a permanent basis. Much of this, many of you have seen at committee meetings. Before we proceed, though, I wanted to ask Sean Bernatowicz to just review with you where he stands on some of the core spaces in the school today.
See, I knew you'd be back.
As you've seen, the number of classrooms that we require has been established. The pieces that I'm going to speak to about tonight are specifically about the core spaces. And when we talk about core spaces, we're talking about areas for phys ed, for lunch, the cafetorium that we have, for art and music primarily. Currently, our current situation is that right now we have 63. We need 63 slots for PE for K through 5. As it stands, our gym at a maximum can accommodate 60 periods in a 5-day cycle that we work off of. So as it stands right now, we're already over what we can do in our phys ed class. So that also assumes that the phys ed space is utilized from 9:15 until 3:35 when the kids leave, with every minute being maximized. We do a pretty good job of doing that right now. There's not many open slots in that gym. Part of what our struggle or what our challenge is that we have an itinerant teacher who obviously comes in to support us as well with the number of kids that we have, but he also supports 3 other schools. So he's not always there exactly when an open period, so to speak, is there, so it makes it for a very challenging situation. The things that we have done in order to kind of make it work in our current situation is that at this time we have kindergarten classes doubling up. So we have 2 PE teachers with 2 kindergarten classes, which results in 43 kindergartners being in the gym at one time. I love our gym, but if you've been in our gym, it's not huge. And it is not made for 43 little ones to be running around all at once. There's many, many downsides to this. The first concern for me is always safety. You put 43 little ones in a closed space, the number of kids running into and bumping into each other, the opportunities for accidents just goes up. So that's a real concern for me on an ongoing basis. We also had to double up first grade classrooms. So again, the size of the kids get bigger as they grow up. Right now we have up to 46 kids in the gym at one time. And again, all the safety concerns that I have are there. The PE teachers also expressed their concerns, obviously, about the number of repetitions, opportunities for kids to participate. When you have that many kids, you have a limited number of basketball hoops. Obviously, the number of times they're going to get to shoot or do a drill is going to decrease. We have also used our cafetorium for some classes as well. If you've been into our cafetorium, if you haven't been there, I invite you to come by anytime that you want. It's not designed to be a gym. It's designed to do what is to be both a cafeteria and our auditorium as well. So we have implications in terms of the space itself. It's not really conducive to running PE, and it's also limited in the number of times that we have available because we run lunch in there. We also run our assemblies in there. Many times our band and orchestra have to practice on the stage when they're all together having a rehearsal. If the number of sections that we're anticipating would come, then obviously our numbers would go up. We would be looking at trying to accommodate 71 periods of PE in a gym that currently can facilitate and hold and provide us with 60 if we maximize every single minute. It's just not feasible for us to continue on this route. In terms of art and music, we currently do have a dedicated, we're very fortunate, we've been able to hold on to our art room, we've been able to hold on to our music room, which are used by our full-time art and music teachers. Additionally, we have art on a cart and music on a cart. We have itinerant teachers that come in. We currently have 10 classes of music that are taught in classrooms, and we have 7 classes of art that are taught in classrooms. Obviously, when you move from an area like a music room or an art room into a classroom, your number of opportunities are reduced. So it's something that we don't, or not in favor of continuing with. We would love to be able to see dedicated space for these itinerant teachers as well. In terms of our cafetorium, right now, every grade has their own lunch period. We have 25 minutes that we go outside for recess to begin with. We have 25 minutes in the cafetorium for lunch. We feel that we can accommodate the anticipated growth in our cafetorium. We're looking at opportunities to reduce the amount of time that kids spend in line. That's the one place where we do get jammed up a little bit. Kids who are purchasing lunch have to go through the serving line, so we're looking to try to expedite that as much as we can. As it stands right now, our recess starts at 11 o'clock and we wrap up by 1:30. So in part of that process, if we need to expand the times that we have lunch and recess, we could do that. Right now, we feel like we're in a very good part of the day for lunch and recess. We would not like to go in either direction if we didn't have to.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bernardowitz?
Thank you very much. The previous slide, so if recess starts at that's the earliest, so the first
Correct.
lunch is then
11:25.
11:25,
Correct.
excuse me. Also, and I'm sorry, my kids didn't go to Penguin, so I'm not as familiar, but I believe you have a hard playground area, like with a
We have a
four-square.
blacktop area, correct. It has, okay.
So I'm just trying to get a sense of how much that's used and the grass fields are used in parallel. Are there days like a rainy day, even though it rained the whole day, where you may let them outside on the hard top, but not the grass? Just, if you give me some sense of how your outside spaces are used, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. When I say when the weather cooperates and everything is open, we're in a really good place. We have our mulched area, our playground area, which is wonderful. We have a field. Right now, we can accommodate 2 soccer games at a time. We also have a kickball field so that we can have that going on. And then we have the blacktop surface. On the blacktop surface, we have 2 different basketballs. One's a high regulation size. The other's a smaller one. The big kids like the smaller one because they can dunk a lot better. And then we also have some odd-shaped areas where we have fit in some foursquare. So on days when we can't go on the field or on the wood chips, our rule is you can't run. And that's unfortunate. But when we have 100-plus kids in a very small area, our options are very limited. We don't have organized games, basketball games on those days. We'll play knockout because we can't have 20 kids in a small area running up and down a court. So we do maximize our blacktop.
You may want to tell us what knockout is.
Yeah.
It is a basketball game in which the children line up in a single file line. There's 2 balls. You shoot. If you make it, you stay in. If you miss, you try to get your rebound and shoot. While you're shooting, the person behind you immediately begins shooting. If they make it before you make it, then you're out.
It's all right. It's a good game. It's a good game. I just needed to.
Well said.
You asked, sir.
I just want to be, so like there are days where they're restricted from the grass field, but they are allowed on your non-grass field.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we try to go out every day we possibly can.
Today was probably a no.
It was not a day that we went out, no.
Thank you.
And we go through a lot of chalk when we go out, so.
Mr. Bernardowitz, any concern about play spaces, the playground, just in terms of number of kids and access, in terms of the increased enrollment?
Right now, as I said at the beginning, when we have full use of our fields, I feel that we're in a very good place. Kids have choices, they have opportunities. We can meet everybody's needs. If there are places where kids can sit, if they choose to go out and bring a game, if they have their card games that they play, so we have opportunities for kids like that. The wood chips is a great area, has many different elements to it that the kids can play on. Then again, the fields provide them with opportunities to really spread out and enjoy themselves.
So this is a really great summary of core space today. As you grow, what do you anticipate happening?
One of the elements that I have been advocating for is an additional gym. That is the one area, course space, one particular content area where you have to have a specific kind of space. And as it stands right now, we don't have enough space in order to meet that need. So that is one thing that I would be advocating for. As Mr. Copeland mentioned, and depending on how the sections go, being able to identify one of the additional rooms as a room for those itinerant art and music teachers to work in, so they have a home space to work out of, is another goal that I would have as well. And to go back to the question about when we get outside, the other piece to the core space, a second gym for me, would also give me the opportunity on those days when we can't get outside, I could schedule in a very creative way so that when we have indoor recess, we have the opportunity to go down to that other gym when it's not being used for PE and give kids chances to move around and be active on days that we simply can't get outside.
Just a follow-up, so things like offices for staff and, I don't know.
We're in good
Therapy
shape in
rooms
terms
and
of
things
when
like that.
I talk about small spaces. When I think about small spaces for therapists and people like that, we have many small spaces. Last year, 2 years ago, I'm sorry, we actually took a corridor, a hallway, and divided it into 3 small offices. So we have spaces for people to provide those sorts of services. Our office was relocated as part of the school safety task force, so we're in a good position there. Mrs. Partridge loves her office. She says it's great. My office is wonderful as well, so we're good in terms of office space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to continue on with just a review of where we are with the temporary classroom. As you know, we're kind of on a short timeline. So we've gone to the township and asked for them to give us a waiver of land development. In other words, we've asked them to give us an approval with only one pass through the system. So we still have to meet all the requirements, but we don't have to go in multiple times because our timeline is so short. And then ultimately, we don't have to record this plan, which saves us some money. So last week, the application was reviewed by the Planning Commission on Monday, March 7th. It was reviewed by the commissioners in their Building and Planning Committee on Wednesday, March 9th. And then this Wednesday, the 16th, will be final approval at the monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Just a reminder here, this is a site plan of the school. Well, let's see. All right, just to orient you, this is Haverford Road over here. The school is here. The proposed location for the temporary classroom is right here. And the plan also includes creation of some additional parking down in this corner. This is a little bit close-up view of the temporary classroom. It's one building with 4 classrooms and restrooms. It'll be located near the corner of the existing school such that students can enter and leave the building from what is now Mr. B's office and go back and forth. And because we're going to have this security fence up here shown in the dotted red line, they'll be able to stay within what I refer to as the security perimeter of the school. So students will be able to go back and forth themselves. And you can see there are some emergency gates there in case of a need to leave that area for some reason. This is a photo of what the units will look like. Before we go on and talk about any ideas for permanent additions, are there any questions I could answer about the temporary classrooms or about the conditions of approval?
I just want to be clear. Can you go back to the list of the different meetings that have occurred? I think it's, let me see. No, just right there, yeah. So my understanding is that at the, at the Planning Commission meeting, at the March 7th Planning Commission meeting, we were approved to have 4 years of the temporaries, and then at the March 9th meeting, that's the Board of Commissioners meeting, that was reduced to 2 years. That's accurate? That's where we're standing at this point?
That's correct. To be specific, the condition reads, "The modular classroom shall be removed from the site within 2 years of its installation. The applicant," that's us, "may seek an extension to this deadline by submitting a request to the Board of Commissioners prior to the 2-year expiration date."
Okay, so we still have the ability to request to use the temporaries if we need to at that time,
Yes,
but we have to go back again and ask for permission.
correct.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, what does that process look like of getting permission? Is that a long process, a short process? What's the timeline?
I think it would be very similar to what we've just gone through, only it would just focus on that one question. And I think the big question in the commissioner's mind would mean, how much more time do you need? And we would have to be able to give some sort of indication of that.
Thank you, Pat. If you could go back to just the site plan where there's that one. In the lower right corner, that's a 10-space parking lot, that's correct?
That's correct.
What is the timeline for us installing that 10-space parking lot? Is that set forth as a date certain, or is there some?
To my understanding, there's not a date certain. If we get approval of this plan, obviously, we are on the hook to build it. My understanding of talking to the township is that based on this working group that's going to come together and explore options, we may not have to do it right away. How I would define that is maybe not this year, but at some point in the future.
So, if I might, while it's 1 in a billion, if enrollment started to drop and we just didn't need to do anything else, we might still be on the hook for building the permanent, even if we take the temps out and don't do anything else. Is that possible?
Well, that's possible. It's also possible we can go back and ask for this to be changed based on the changed circumstances.
Okay. And I do have one more, I'm sorry to hammer on this one. I have heard, I guess there is some criticism that sometimes buses, because the bus loop is just to the left of that parking lot, correct?
That's correct. The bus loop comes in and goes out like this. So there's existing parking right here, and the proposal is to extend that existing parking out here with the additional 10 spaces.
So, because my kids did go to Penn Valley, part of the bus loop, I guess I'm going to call it the central aisle of a parking lot. You drive down the aisle and you pick a stall on your left or your right that's open and pull your car in. But when you stop and think about it from a parking lot, that central aisle is only used a couple minutes a day to get cars in and out, and then it stays empty, stays unused. So at Penn Valley, that central aisle is, I believe, is used as part of the bus loop.
You're correct.
So if the bus queue is an issue, is it possible to kind of reconfigure all of that to use that central aisle to get buses off? It means cars can't come in or out, but something like what's going on at Penn Valley. What's your thought on that?
I don't think there's any specific reason why we could not. It would just be limited by our ability to achieve that configuration where buses could come in and go out.
So I put my last question, I promise. So I'm concerned that we might have to build that parking lot, and then if we come back and then decide, let's reconfigure the bus loop for whatever reason, we've committed ourselves, and then we kind of want to uncommit ourselves. So I just want to be wary that we ask for a temporary solution, the temps. I'm worried we commit too much permanence. It's going to be hard to undo some things, and then a more efficient bus loop may be more difficult to do in the future. I don't know. That's why I'm concerned about when that 10-space parking lot gets built. But thank you.
Pat, do we have a sense of cost for the parking lot, or we're still working that up?
The parking lot itself is $100,000 to $130,000. And the reason it's so expensive is because of the grades there. We're going to have to do some excavation and create some retaining walls. Okay, I'm going to let Danielle have the floor now, and she's going to talk about some of the ideas that we've been looking at for permanent additions to the school to alleviate the space shortage. And obviously, as you know, you haven't made any decision on that yet.
So I want to talk to you about how we are addressing some of the concerns that you've heard tonight already. One of the earlier slides talks about by 2018-2019, Penn will need 6 additional classrooms. So we've created a couple of different designs that show a configuration of 6 classrooms. Mr. Bernanowitz had also talked about adding an auxiliary gym as part of the educational program. So we'll show you how we've implemented that in the designs. The project timeline that we're looking at is allowing for construction to start in the spring of 2017 with completion in the 2018-2019 school year to accommodate those projected enrollments. And these timelines are based on the board giving us direction no later than May of 2016. So again, to get you oriented on the site, if you look at north being straight up on the page, on the right-hand side is Haverford Avenue. On the left-hand side is Trent Road. The areas in orange on the top is the area of the proposed modular classrooms, the 4 classrooms there. And then at the end of the existing building in orange is the proposed addition. This is what we're going to call option 1. And in this case, option 1A. To look at the addition in relationship to the rest of the building, how did you do where'd you go? How did you do that?
Just
Okay. So to look at the addition that's proposed here in gray in relationship to the rest of the building, in the center of this is the auxiliary gym, and as you cut a section through here, we're looking at the cafetorium with stage. The gym that Mr. Bernanowitz is talking about is here. I'll make reference to a couple of different things. This is the original building in this area here, the original 1932 building. This is an addition done in 1949. It's actually comprised of 6 classrooms, 4 on the lower level and 2 on the upper level. And then in 2002, an atrium and a classroom and cafetorium addition was added on. I'm going to zoom in on that addition a little bit. In this particular option, we're looking at 2 classrooms on the lower level and an auxiliary gym. To meet the Department of Education's requirements to be classified as an auxiliary gym, it needs to be a minimum of 2,500 square feet and have a clear ceiling height to the underside of the structure of 16 feet. And in order for us to get classrooms above that area, we actually needed to drop that auxiliary gym down. And what that does is that this floor level here is at the same floor level as the existing building. What we're looking at here is the height of the stage, and if you look at the outside of the building, there's some doors that come out of the building. That's these doors here, and then it steps down. So this elevation is at the same, like I said, of the existing building, and actually the corridor would help close that loop. Right now you kind of have 2 dead-end corridors, 2 wings that exit out to the building, and with the addition that's proposed, we're actually continuing that loop. And then to get down to the lower level of the auxiliary gym, there will be a ramp and some stairs that come down to this doorway. And actually, these doors that are exiting directly to the exterior would exit on grade. If you're familiar with this site, there is a bit of a grade transition from the existing building down to the athletic field. So we're making up that difference with the auxiliary gym. On the upper level, we're showing 4 classrooms. Now, these 2 classrooms located here are over the auxiliary gym, and it's not all the way over the auxiliary gym. There's some additional area below. I'll show you that in section. But what we're providing is 4 classrooms on this upper level and some restroom facilities. This is a section cut through, and that's basically a splice through the building. Looking at, what we're looking at here is the elevated stage area. This is the cafetorium area. This is the stage curtains. But then the floor area, the floor level of the second floor is the same floor level of the corridor, as well as the first floor area is the same level of the first floor. And then the floor level of the auxiliary gym drops down 4 feet. Now, we've also provided an option, and we'll call that option 1B, and the only difference is that the upper level classrooms here actually extend out the full length over the auxiliary gym. So the classroom sizes are larger, it gives additional flexibility for the program. And if you remember, we've already lost the large group instruction rooms for classrooms. So again, this could possibly, if the enrollments went down, provides that opportunity to get back that large group instruction area. And then this is a section cut through that option, and you can see that the exterior wall goes straight up. There is no indentation to it, and then the classrooms are much larger on the upper level. And we've gone to a lot of the various meetings, one being the Penn Win Civic Association, and there was some concern about us building over some of the play area located in this area here. So they asked us to take a look at an addition on the north east corner of the site off of Haverford Avenue. And so we explored that option a little bit better, and we're going to that a little bit more in detail. And you see we're looking at 12 classroom addition here in auxiliary gym, and the reason being is that we would need to eliminate or demolish the existing 1949 wing, which has 6 classrooms in it, in order to build this 12 classroom addition. And the reason that we're showing this addition configured this way is we were trying to not affect the existing parent drop-off area here and leave that intact. This line here of the wall would actually be in the line of the existing 1949 wing, and then we build closer to Haverford Avenue. In doing that, in doing this particular option, since we're eliminating 6 classrooms that already exist, we need to accommodate 6 more classrooms in the temporary modulars that we're proposing. As we talked about before, what we're trying to get approval for now is for 4 classrooms. This would be for 10 classrooms to handle not only the enrollments, but also to handle the 6 classrooms that are lost for the construction of this particular option. The addition, the way we've configured it here, is that we've taken this classroom, and if you remember from presentations that we may have done previously, the 1949 wing is just a single loaded corridor. The corridor is a continuation of the original building, and then there's classrooms on one side of it, which is what we talk about as a single loaded corridor. In order to keep this plane in the existing location, what we do is jog the corridor over and then up again so that we get classrooms on both sides of the corridor and the auxiliary gym. So on this floor level, we have 6 classrooms in auxiliary gym, as we're showing here in a little bit more detail. And as the grades go up, as we get closer to Suffolk Avenue, what we're doing is we're actually ramping up in the corridor, much like what is currently exists there now at Penn Win and the 1949 wing. And then on the second floor, basically a repeat of the first floor, 6 classrooms, and then the upper part of the gym. So unlike the first option that I showed you, which was a 6 classroom addition, this is actually a 12 classroom addition.
Because you're taking out, how many classrooms are you taking out then?
The 1949 wing has 6 classrooms that we're taking out.
So this is a summary of our cost estimates for these 3 options. The first 2 were described as option 1A and 1B, and there's about $400,000 difference. And that's the difference between having what I'll call a regular sized classroom on the second floor over the gym, or creating 2 supersized classrooms by moving the outside wall out to match up with the outside wall of the gym. And then the option 2, which is there at the northeast corner, is shown. It's quite a bit more expensive because we have to go through the demolition process and find a home for the existing 6 classrooms. If you consider this from the fact that we're trying to create an additional 138 spaces, you could take these costs and divide them by 138 and get a cost per space. And that's what you see on the bottom line there. So that's another way to look and compare the cost estimates. I prepared a couple of slides here to talk about advantages and disadvantages. And this is just meant to prompt thought and discussion. I'm grouping option 1A and 1B together. The advantages here, as I see them, are that they logically improve the circulation pattern and the educational program of the school. We're adding on to a portion of the building where we already have classrooms, especially on the second floor. It's the lowest cost of the options that are presented, and it would be the least disruptive to construct during the school year. A major disadvantage is that we would lose some playground space. These options, as proposed, project approximately 64 feet from the existing building. Now we've looked at option 2, and again, this is the one where we build in the northeast corner of the site. The way we looked at it, we would have to take down the existing 1949 wing. But a major advantage here is that it uses space that's not currently being used by anything else at the school and ultimately preserves the playground field space in its current configuration. Now, one of the things we did as part of exploring this option was we took it to the Historic Commission. Penn Win is a Class II historic resource, and the real historic resource is the 1932 building, in particular the facade that fronts out onto Haverford Road. So we just wanted to get their comments on it. We didn't go and ask for approval or anything. They were not in favor of the concept, primarily, in my view, is because it projected so far out in front of the 1932 building toward Haverford Road. And that one concern that one member expressed was that if you approach the site from the north, you don't even see the historic resource until you're right next to it or abreast of it. So that's one disadvantage. We don't see it as fitting as well logically into the pattern of the school, the circulation pattern, and the educational program. It is more expensive by roughly $5 million, and it would have a longer construction time and end up being more disruptive to the school for the simple reason we have to move 6 classrooms out, et cetera. So those are just some advantages and disadvantages. The next thing we have for you is some really cool 3D graphics that show the building and the site and the option 1 alternatives. But before we go there, are there any questions I could answer? You're tired of me. Thank you. I get it. Yep.
I have questions back on the temporaries, and I'm terribly sorry.
Sure.
I can wait until after. Would that be fine?
We're going to switch computers here while we show the 3D, so.
Okay. I'm looking at conditions of approval, and there was a lot of conversation by the Building and Planning Committee to look at moving the temporaries off the grass field onto, I apologize, where the 4 square is. And I guess I'm reading the condition of approval. It's talking about existing playing fields. So I have 2 questions. There's obviously a parking lot up there. I'm under the assumption that we can't put the temporary on parking for 2 reasons. One, it would interrupt car line and be too physically distant from the building to be practical. But if it were practical, what's your sense on the zoning conditions of approval? Because should we take out 15, 20 parking spaces, and then we could preserve both the grass field and the hard cap field? Make sense?
My understanding of listening to the discussion is that they wanted us to work with staff, and in particular it says that applicants shall work with township staff to explore relocating the temporary classroom to achieve the goal of reducing impact to the existing playing fields. It was not my intent that they would want us to take up parking to do that. We would try to see how it could be fit in and minimize the impact, maybe move it to the right a little bit as you see it there on the plan, but not that we would actually take up parking space, because I think that would defeat one of the other things we're trying to do.
Well, I understand, but as a temporary, it was never discussed, as I understand it, to remove parking.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I hate to assume what they think. I wonder if it's worth asking. But I'm also concerned, I don't want to ask if it's physically impossible, because I know that's car line. So putting
Right.
the temp there and having your corridor seems illogical to me, but I'm just trying to understand the issue.
Right. The way I would see it is if you moved it over and interrupted the flow of the car line, that would be detrimental. That would not give you much of an advantage.
So in this case, we're really we really have to give that parking lot higher priority, I guess.
In my view, for the temporary classrooms, yes.
Yeah,
And
that's what-
we'll discuss that with the township staff.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to jump back like that. Thank you.
Okay. We're up next.
If you could switch to the portable microphone. Is it? Is it? Is it? Hello? Thank you.
There we go.
All right, all of us are visual learners, so we thought what we'd do is, as we start to develop and look at these concept options, sometimes it's easier to take a look at it in a 3D image versus on a floor plan that sometimes is hard to visualize. So after we had the meeting with the Historical Commission and their preferred option was looking at what we had talked about with option 1, we further developed that a little bit more. And what we wanted to bring to you tonight is just kind of show you the massing of what the addition looks like and how we would tie it in with the rest of the building. So the view that you're looking at now is at the corner of Haverford and Drayton. We're looking at, on that corner, the 1932 original structure. And that's the historic resource that Pat was talking about. To the right of that is the 1949 addition. And you can see that the grades start to slope up. You can see that stepping up there on the graphic. That 1949 addition has a first floor and then a partial second floor, if you noticed. So if you could, this is Scott Adams. He's the project architect for this project. He was also the project architect for Penn Valley and Gladwin. And he's driving for me tonight. If you could zoom in on that a little bit. Some of the things that we want to pick up on as we start to explore how to tie the rest of the addition into the rest of the building is picking up on some of the vocabulary of the elevations of the building. And we're looking at the window detailing on the original structure. And if you can come back around to Drayton Avenue, you can see that they've broken up the horizontality of the building by creating some vertical elements in the window fenestration with some brick detailing underneath the windows there on the second floor. When the architect did the addition in 2002, he broke up, or he created a separation between the original architecture and his new architecture by creating that glass atrium portion of the building, and then carried that second floor window detailing by creating, again, that vertical element through precast detailing. And then he had an addition that comes out from that on the lower level. If you swing around to the Suffolk Avenue side, again, going and looking at the 1932 portion of the building, there you go. Again, that they used the same type of window detailing on the original building. And as you come over to the 2002 addition, again, they have that glass atrium. But they did something a little bit different on the addition portion of it. You can see that the window detailing is different. They've used kind of more of a standard punch window type of detailing on the building. And then if you look at the Trent Avenue side on the end of the building, yeah, come back around where you were before. Sticking.
Yeah, it's
What they did is they kind of complemented what's done on the rest of the building, and on the planes that faced, it's actually the west elevation, point to that. Each plane that is on the west elevation, they made it virtually plain. They didn't do any detailing or any windows on that plane of the building. They did everything facing either Drayton or Suffolk. And so they did the same type of thing on the end of the building of the 2002 edition. And they broke up that massing there by having a cream color on either side with a brick color in the middle. So if you come around to the corner like we talked about, showing the, no, go back. To the addition. So the option 1, and I hope you're not getting dizzy as you're going around looking at this.
sorry. Something's going on here.
He's stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck. I'm not sure why.
Do you want to flip to another one and then go back to that one again? Would that help?
Try. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, so go back to where we're proposing the addition.
It's not cooperating.
Do you need to have, give me that piece of paper? Maybe it's, you need to have that underneath it.
I'm trying.
There you go. Okay, where we're adding the addition. Now we're gonna, this is option 1A, this is a 1B, isn't it?
Yes.
Go in, zoom in a little bit more than that. So we're kind of doing a little bit backwards because the other one got stuck. So this is actually option 1B. And if you flip to the proposed addition, you'll see that we're trying to keep the same vocabulary going, doing the windows on the Suffolk Avenue side and on the Drayton side, and then the west elevation would be blank wall. If you zoom in on the addition, we're actually trying to keep the same kind of window fenestration continuing from the 2002 edition, and trying to keep a seamless addition. And then on the Drayton Avenue side, we're also keeping that same window detailing on the upper floor level, and then using the same window detailing that we had on the lower level of the Suffolk Avenue side. And then keeping the west elevation, detailing it only at the auxiliary gym and the classrooms above. The reason we don't want to really detail those two sides and add windows coming around the corners there is, if you remember, on each side of the building, there are different window configurations, so it get all screwed up on the end of the building. And so this way it creates a good break in terms of providing, maintaining the same vocabulary of the building. The area that's pushed out is the auxiliary gym. If you want to zoom in a little bit on that, if you could. What we're showing here is the ribbon of windows, which is actually a translucent panel, if you could point to that, called a cowl wall system. It lets natural light into the auxiliary gym, but it's not a clear window. It's, like I said, a translucent panel that allows natural light in, but not the glare. And it's also strong enough to resist balls hitting it in the auxiliary gym. And then we're providing that brick detailing below the windows. And then upstairs would be the same window fenestration in the classrooms above. Now, can you flip, do you think,
Danny,
to the other?
can I just ask you, I'm having this nostalgia SimCity thing here with my kids. Could we just move it along? I appreciate it, but I know we've
We're
got
just
some
going to
other
flip
things.
real quick, hopefully. And this one's not working. And that's the option 1B, where we're extending the classrooms out from it. Actually, if you could just fly around to the corner just to speed things up, at the corner of Haverford Avenue, and looking at the 1949 edition. Okay, come around. We just wanted to show you the grade differential. We have not developed the option that we talked about with option 2 in this corner. But what we wanted to show you is the grade differential. If you remember, I talked about stepping up in with ramps internal to the building, and that's to make up those grades that are currently existing there to reduce the cost of the construction. And that's really all we had, and we just... It's each 2 feet or 1 foot elevation? 1 foot or 2 foot grade
Those
differential?
are 2 feet.
2 feet. Each one of those lines is 2 feet. So it's almost a story. That's all we had. It's, again, we're not asking for any decisions. It's just trying to give you a visual idea of what the building looks like.
Much
I hope
appreciated.
nobody got nauseous.
Can you hold? Okay. All right. Do you have anything else, Bob?
Nope, that concludes our reports.
Thank you very much to the administration. I want to say we had a robust conversation in facilities, and I appreciate the administration as well as Gilbert Architects pulling together this on behalf of the board and the public. At this time, I'd like to take public comment. I appreciate your patience. We typically don't go this long for presentations, but I want to take public comment, and then I'll go back to the board so that folks who, on agenda items only for this first set of public comment, please sign in with Ms. LaPera. There is a 3-minute time limit. If you could give us your name and where you reside in the district.
My name is Ruth Jenkin. I live in Wynwood. A couple of things. The classroom concept of cultural diversity seems to me to be really a good connection with the responsive classroom. I would also like to see, since I am involved in my family, dealing not only with racial issues, but adoption issues that also overlap onto racial issues, same-sex parents, and foster children, so that everybody feels included in that process. As far as the conversation here, all these people are waiting forever to get a chance to talk with young children, sometimes waiting till 10 o'clock at night, that the first part should be a little bit of an opportunity for these people to say what they have to say before it gets too late. As far as the cost is concerned, in terms of this addition, the addition to Penn Wynn, does that, once that so-called addition is finished, do the temporary buildings leave or do they stay there forever? Is it $1.1 million per year or for the life of the contract? And I would just like to go back again to the kindergarten center, which doesn't have to be at the church on the Welsh Valley site. It can be another site. In terms of continuously building onto all of these schools, this is going to go on forever. This is not a solution. It's just a temporary Band-Aid if the population increases. As far as the buses are concerned, you already pick up the kindergarten kids twice a day and drop them off at different schools. This would be going only to one school. Thank you.
Answer the temporary,
Just for
the
clarification.
cost of the temporary per year, Mr. Ganan? You could yell at me, you don't have to get up there.
It's a good question. The 1.1 million is all in for 2 years of temporary, and then the intent is that they will go away once we no longer need them.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Berger?
Thank you for the opportunity. And regarding the, Scott Berger in Wynwood. I was only at one of the prior meetings where this was discussed, and myself and two of the other fathers initiated the discussion around the addition in the front of the building. So thank you for taking the time to consider that and draw that out. I think despite the cost, and I don't want to underestimate. Obviously, it's much more expensive and has more hurdles. But the genesis of the discussion was around the preservation of the property as a community center in terms of places where people play with their kids outside of school hours and on the weekends and during the summer. It also was an extension of a discussion around how the property itself is being compressed, both with traffic, with the bus routes. If you gave up parking spaces in the parking lot for the teachers, then they'd have to spill out onto the streets, which are already saturated. And so I would love some additional consideration of how the property is going to evolve over time with those factors, and have that be a factor in the placement of the addition, and have it not just be objective measurements for cost and square footage, but also what is the impact to the total property of any of those decisions, and how does that impact how the neighbors on all of those streets and the community at whole use the fields and the playground. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Renita Thomas.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm one of the 2 co-presidents of the HSA at Penguin School, and have been lucky enough to be in some of these discussions, and I feel, sorry. My name is Renita Thomas. I live in Wynwood. I have 3 children at Penguin currently, and I have a 4th child starting kindergarten next year. And like I said, I'm HSA president at the moment. The reason for me coming tonight is really that I've been a part of a lot of these discussions, and I've listened to a lot of parents talk. And I can honestly say that while nobody at Penguin is excited about the idea of all the construction, and there are concerns about dust and things like that, I think as a community, we do know that this has to go forth and that we want this to happen for our children, because part of what makes Lower Merion School have the standard that it has, to me and to many parents, has to do with the class sizes. And I think it's really important that we realize that a big reason why we're trying to do this, and while this is moving forward, is to contain class sizes, which I think maintains a lot of what we're trying to do in school. And B, I think that we're all very happy and proud of all the other activities and things our children can do in schools, like art and like music. And I find it sad that my child has to have a Spanish teacher come on a cart to their classroom, even now at a school like Penguin, which is like a top school in the state. We're already dealing with difficulties with the space that we're provided. Like Mr. B said, we don't even have a large group room. As co-president of the HSA, we deal with things that we have to do within the school day and activities that we don't have the space for currently, because we don't have any space to do that in as far as a large group room. So I know that people say, like, maybe this is a Band-Aid. I don't think we see it as a Band-Aid. I think we see it as, we need this space. We need this space for our children. We need this space in the coming years. Even if the school didn't grow by tremendous amounts, we need that large group room back. We need it for our teachers, and we need it to maintain what we are all proud of to call Penguin and the type of school that we want our children to go to, which is important. And that's basically what I wanted to say. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Beth Roberts. Oh, okay, I couldn't see her.
Hi, I'm Beth Roberts. May I change topic at this time? Thank you. Okay, then I'll wait till the end. At the end of the meeting, then.
It's non-agenda, correct?
Non-agenda, right?
What's your topic? What's your topic?
Girls varsity basketball.
Okay, so that'll be at the end of the
Okay,
meeting, so please stay with us. Next speaker.
Mr. Waldron? Same issue.
Okay, so our speakers for agenda items only, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, and then our non-agenda items will have
Sure.
the business meeting, and then we will continue on with public comment for non-agenda items.
I'm not sure if Mr. Meyer, is that, okay, you're next, Mr. Meyer.
Ben Meyer, 247 Rock Glen Road, Wynwood, Penguin parent on the Civic Association Penguin Expansion Subcommittee. Pat, is there any way to put that PDF up on the screen that I emailed you this morning? Anyway.
I'm sorry, Mr. Meyer. We had an opportunity to do that at facilities, but we need to move through public comment relatively quickly so we can get to the business meeting. Yes. But we'll be glad to post that on the website.
This is, okay.
If you can give those to Ms. LaPera, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. This is a new option for that. You know, early this morning I sent to Pat, and I don't think he or the architect that's been working hard on this has had a chance to look at option 4, but it had. Oops. you still have one copy? I have the advantages on it. The advantages are on the back. Yeah, I need the one with the advantages on the back. But anyway, I appreciate there's a lot of pressure on you to teach our kids in a space that's good and helpful. Anyway, the advantages of this option 4, as you can see, specifically are that the field is not used for the permanent classrooms, and I did slide over, as the one gentleman suggested, the modular classrooms over onto the Foursquare area in this idea here. And the reason there is, again, to kind of preserve the continuity of the field. And the field wouldn't be used for construction either, because I think that's an important consideration of the approximately 2 years of construction. So that's an advantage also. The idea would be to use basically the current Suffolk Lane parking for the construction area, basically, and to build. The problem is we've got a lot of unused space in the front, and the historical obviously doesn't want to build something large in the front. That's understood, but parking is low, and so if we put everything on what do you call it? Surface. Okay, yeah, man, I'm gonna try here. So anyway, if we put the parking in the front and a car line or a bus line in the front with 14 places of parking, we can keep everything off of the field. We get parking, 14 places of parking there. So it's sort of a variation option 4. And I ask that, when Patrick and the architect get a chance to have a look at that. It also preserves all the windows on the 1931 side on that, and it shares the hallway. So the main advantage is that you don't have to tear down the 1949 section, so the costs of option 4 here are about the same as option 1, give or take. And you get 5 classrooms, you get a gym, and the field is preserved, which I think is helpful to our whole community. There are a few disadvantages, and I listed them on the back as best I could, the advantages and disadvantages of each. I don't have the experience of the architect, but having talked with her after the previous school meeting on Thursday, I think anyway, I ask you to stay open-minded about preserving the field, and this might be an opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you want the
You have more
board to
speakers,
comment?
Ms. LeBaron?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
Adam?
Hey, my name's Adam Granwetter. I'm a parent at Penwyn. I live in Wynwood. I have 2 children currently there, one who will be joining next year. I guess first, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thank you also for seriously undertaking this effort to try to maintain small class size and keep Penwyn sort of the reason we moved to the Lower Merion School District of, affording our children all of the educational opportunities. I guess my question is more for the architects, because it seemed when you were explaining Lower Merion's approach towards options 1A and 1B versus option 2, it seemed that part of the reason they really didn't like option 2 was the potential loss of the facade, of the viewing of the facade from Haverford Avenue when approaching Penwyn School from the north. And I guess as a parent of young children and seeing that a good part of our discussion tonight with Mr. B was about trying to get an auxiliary gymnasium, the fact that we would be considering the view of the facade at the expense of taking away a substantial portion of the outdoor space for all of the children of Penwyn is, cool. I guess I'm not alone in thinking that that is an absolutely ludicrous consideration. And it just boggles the mind that they would consider favoring a facade over all of the outdoor space for our children. So that's all I got to say on that.
Just clarify, this was not our architect's issue. This was, as I understand it, something that we think was an issue for the
planning commission, the Lower Merion
Historical Commission, right. Okay.
Historical Commission, I think, if I can speak to the people who applauded, it's kind of insane and mind-boggling that we would be more concerned with the facade from one approach of Haverford Avenue than we would with all of the outdoor open space for our children and the community as a whole.
Yeah,
wanted to
I'll
make
warn you
sure-
that that kind of was my paraphrase after listening to them. So they may have a more nuanced view of this thing, but it was definitely not our opinion. And unfortunately or fortunately, historical values are important to our community, and they have rules. So thank you.
Ms. Sparrow?
Bottom line is, we're not the insane ones.
Hi, I'm Shelby Sparrow in Wynwood. I have 2 children at Penn and I'm the president of the Civic Association. I've been going to a lot of these meetings, the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners, and I just want to clarify one point about the Historical Commission comment. The chair of the Historical Commission spoke at the Board of Commissioners meeting and said, yes, this is what they said, but he admitted it's very one-sided. They're very one-dimensional with what they're talking about. Their job is not the undertaking of your job to think about how an entire school fits into a community and how the land of the school is being used. So I really ask you to think about preserving the open space of the school and trying to think out of the box and figure out different ways and really come up with a long-range plan for the entire district, because enrollment is growing all over, not just at Penn Wyn. And I think that there are just some big picture issues that really, if they're looked at, can be addressed in a more thoughtful way and with better outcomes for all of our children. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that's it.
I'm sorry, Dr. Valen, I had one.
That's right. Sorry, Ben, please.
It's, I think probably for Danny or Pat, the 1A option had a step back of the classrooms, and 1B put the classrooms flush with the end of the gymnasium. Correct me if I'm wrong, during facilities, if you have a step back, the roof line is a potential for a leak or some issue. So there is some benefit to bumping the rooms out and keeping them flush if we go with, I think it was 1B where we bumped them out. I'm getting a yes. Is that good enough? She said yes. Thank you for the time.
Board, does anyone else have questions? I know we had public comment, but I want to be sure that questions related to the presentation get addressed. Okay, see, Diane, did you?
No, I have a couple of stupid little things I can discuss.
Okay. So now we will, we have another comment?
Hi, my name is Ken Spivak. I have one kid at the school, and I'm always amazed by how it runs. Wynwood. And I'm always amazed about how it runs for such a big institution. And so my question was, after hearing all these designs, how long, when we get 6 classrooms and another gym, how long will that last? So when you, Mr. B, when you get all that, will you already be at your max? Will you be filled then? Will there be any extra classrooms or? So my question is, are we being short-sighted by the design that we're having right now? So when we move in and when we get this in, hopefully in 2018, whether it's the 1A or the 1B or the 2 or whatever the 4 is, are we already going to be at the max right then and there? And looking at how we got that number, we were kind of short. We didn't anticipate the already growth. So are we going to be in the exact same situation in 5 years or 4 years?
So when we began the project, we actually were looking at a 4-classroom expansion, and we went to the 6th classroom expansion because we knew that that would take care of even the projections that go out some 9 or 10 years, with the hope that we would only need 4. But as you're doing the construction, the sense was you're there, you might as well, and that's why there's a 1A and a 1B to get a larger classroom. And that, if the enrollment didn't happen, would allow us to have a return to some of the core space that we had lost. As I had indicated in the beginning of the presentation, there's just so much prediction you can do beyond 5 years of actual numbers of births. So we think this is prudent, and we think this is appropriate based on the information that we have now.
So is that 2 extra classrooms that it would allow them, if based on the current model of projections?
The highest projected enrollment takes us to 823, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at our architect, that could be a range of 4 to 6 classrooms. See, part of it depends on what grades at any particular time. Younger kids, less kids in the class, and so forth. So it's not perfect because there's no way to determine the exact break as to what students come at a particular time.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any other speakers on agenda items only, please sign in now because we do need to conduct business of the board. Okay, so we're closing the list after the speaker for agenda, okay, please. After the next 2 speakers. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mabel Haggerty. I'm from Wynwood. I'm a parent at Penn. I truly do appreciate everything that's being said here. To piggyback on one of the other comments, we do see this as a necessary thing to happen at our school, at least a lot of the families that I know. And while we don't like the idea of it happening, we support it fully. My question is about the more long-range planning and why, if it has been considered, was it rejected to maybe redraw the line of Penn. If we are, I think it was a 20% growth throughout the district, but we're at 30-ish. If that's something consistently projected, is it possible that we could just maybe bump our lines a little bit closer in and not take on as much of the growth as we seem to be taking on?
I think there is growth. There is growth everywhere.
Sure.
So I don't know that. I mean, we can look at all of those kinds of situations, but when all of the schools are experiencing the growth, the issue is where do you go?
Right. Okay, so it's off the table. That's okay if the answer is yes. I just wasn't sure if it was.
So tonight, the board is viewing the presentation, and then we'll continue the conversation in committee. So nothing's off the table. However, this is what's in front of us in terms of information that we'll consider.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Hi, my name's Tanya Schreiber, and I'm on the Penn Civic, and I live in Wynwood. And so there's been a couple of things brought up that I just thought I should clarify. When it comes to the need for the additional parking spots, during the Board of Commissioners meeting on Wednesday night, it was mentioned that if Penn Elementary was built today, it would need 100 parking spots, and it has less than 50. So the 10 was kind of a nod to the fact that the traffic study done by the township in December actually said that there was only 108 residential parking spots within the 4-block zone of the school. So in order to kind of relieve the pressure that even already exists today, that's where the 10 spots came from. It was kind of a nod to saying, we're going to get some of these cars off the street for you. The second thing is that I wanted to ask what you were going to do. Right now you have these 100 kids coming in, as you said, you don't know where they're going to kind of land, but we do know we have 6 classrooms of first graders, 6 of second, 6 of third, and then 5 of fourth, 5 of fifth. So you kind of have kids popping down into these grades. So if you end up with 6 classrooms for each grade, first through fifth, that's 30. And then you have kindergarten, that's 3 classes, that's 33. So the expansion kind of gets you to the place where you can handle 6 full classrooms of each grade, and that's great. So we have 5 kindergarten classrooms right now. What happens if the same 40% growth that usually happens between kindergarten and first occurs now? What are you guys going to do if the 7th classroom of first graders shows up? Are you going to put them in the system knowing that that's going to actually put you over within 2 years by accepting a 7th class? Or is the 7th classroom of first graders going to be the group that become the first test case for the partner school program? Thank you.
I'd have to see, I didn't quite follow all that was said. The partner schooling, again, is one of the things that we hope to do to begin to alleviate in the short range the situation. My understanding, my belief, is that the in-migration of students in the first grade is already put into the calculation of what we do.
Okay, so now we'll move forward with the routine board business. The Board of School Directors approves the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings: February 16th, regular board meeting, March 7th, Education Committee and Supplementary Board meeting, and accept the following committee meeting minutes: February 18th, Communications, February 29th, Curriculum, March 3rd, Policy, March 10th, Facilities and Purchasing. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All, any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll have the superintendent's update.
Thank you. Just a few quick things. First of all, I am pleased and very happy to announce that Terry Quinlan, who's our lead supervisor for student health and nurse administration, received the Southeast Region's School Nurse Administrator Excellence Award. Mrs. Quinlan was nominated by her colleagues for her outstanding service to the students and staff of the district, as well as her leadership to her colleagues and the community. Mrs. Quinlan will be honored at the PA Association of School Nurses and Practitioners Conference in April, and that'll be held in State College. We really are very pleased at Terry Quinlan. She works really hard, and this is a great honor for her and for Lower Merion. She's not here. She's probably saving someone's life tonight. Also, for our students, Lower Merion senior thrower Vanessa Poe earns top 10 finish at the State Indoor Track Championships. Congratulations to LMH senior shot putter Vanessa Poe, who placed 9th in the state at the PIAA State Indoor Track and Field Championships at Penn State earlier this month and was the district's only representative at the state meet. Congratulations to Vanessa. Winners of the 11th Annual Charlotte Simon Poetry Contest. Congratulations to winners of the 11th Annual Charlotte Simon Poetry Contest of the Ardmore Free Library. Students from all 10 LMSD schools and area independent schools entered this year's contest, which recognizes poetry across a variety of genres. The winners of the Children's Division included Joy Donovan of Penn Win, who earned first place, Adita Karahatter of Welsh Valley, who placed third, Ava Bowman of Penn Win, who earned honorable mention. In the teen division, the first place winner was Sunmi Zhao of Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Honorable mention honorees were Anna Liang of Bala-Cynwyd Middle School, Sophie Roth of Bala-Cynwyd Middle School, Josh Gold of Harriton. The students were officially honored last night at a ceremony in the Lower Merion Township building. LMSD teams advanced to the State Science Olympiad. The district will once again be well represented at the PA State Science Olympiad as Bala-Cynwyd, Welsh Valley, Lower Merion, and Harriton all advanced to states following strong finishes at Southeast Regional Tournament last year at Newman University. Nearly 40 schools competed in both the middle school and the high school divisions of the event, with only the top 7 teams advancing. Bala-Cynwyd earned first place. Welsh Valley earned third in the middle school division. Harriton took a close second place. Come on, second place, Mr. And Lower Merion placed 5th in the high school division. Best of luck to all the teams at the state event next month at Juniata College. No other district in Pennsylvania has more students or schools competing at states. Congratulations to everyone. That concludes my highlights. Oh, I'm still up. Human Resources. I would like to recommend that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Human Resources actions HR 1 through HR 7.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve? So moved. There's second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to welcome, now that he's official, Patrick Hogan, Assistant Principal, Harridan. Mr. Hogan? He's going to speak.
Taller. Good evening. Thank you very much. It is a privilege and an honor. They say that good things come to those who wait. This is not a good thing. This is a really great thing, especially on this evening. I actually began my teaching experience at Belmont Hills Elementary. I was a French teacher, and I spent the start of my career teaching FLES at Belmont Hills, so it's truly an honor and a privilege to come back to where I began. So I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity that you've given me. I'm very excited to make the transition and begin to work and be part of the Harridan team, and I just want to thank you very much for the appointment.
Welcome, Mr. Hogan.
Welcome, Mr. Hogan, on behalf of the Board of School Directors. We will now have the report of the Curriculum Committee by Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. I think in light of the late time, I'll try and shorten it a little bit. The Curriculum Committee met on Monday, February 29th, which was actually considered the March meeting. Our first topic was about responsive classroom, which is a K through 5 program that's implemented all across our elementary schools in 2010, primarily through the institution of morning meeting. Rather than go into this at this point, we actually had, in addition to the Curriculum Committee meeting, we had the presentation at the last education meeting, and if you're interested, you can view that one online. We also had a presentation on professional learning communities, and in particular, we looked at an example of how PLCs are being implemented using world languages. PLCs are a systematic, team-based, regularly scheduled approach to focusing on student achievement. It was also a very exciting presentation, and it is also online at the last Monday meeting, so I'm going to shorten that. We had 2 contracts we reviewed. One is the Center for Responsive Contracts for almost $20,000, and that is a course for elementary educators for about 30 participants across all of our elementary schools to expand the responsive classroom, which we heard this fantastic presentation. And then the second was unlimited access to Brain Pop Junior, and Brain Pop. Well, I must have wrote that. So about $12,000, and those are educational websites with over 1,000 short animated movies for students in grades K through 12, together with quizzes and related materials covering the subjects of science, social studies, English, math, engineering and technology, health, etc. It's very heavily used in the middle school and elementary schools. Both of those were approved for consideration by the Purchasing and Facilities Committee. Our next meeting is April 4th at 8:30 a.m. in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert.
Following with that, the administration recommends items B through D on educational services. Administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached overnight trip request from Harridan and Lower Merion High School music departments to attend the PMEA All-State Festival from March 30th to April 2nd in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached contract with the Center for Responsive Schools Incorporated to provide the responsive classroom course for elementary educators on June 27th through the 30th at the amount of $19,950. And finally, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Brain Pop quote for a 12-month subscription, renewal subscription for elementary and middle school in the amount of $12,000.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Student Services, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves student service items as listed, agreements for students receiving non-district educational services, SS1. And the administration further recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Easter Seals Agreement for special instruction tutoring services for the summer of 2016 extended school year for the set hourly rates as described in the agreement.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Orlando, no, I'm sorry. Mr. Driscoll, the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee. A short recap,
Yes,
please.
Madam President. We met this past Thursday. First item was to review and approve the list of bills. We then went on to the purchasing report. The first item was to purchase 2 new buses, 20-person people each for $116,000. This purchase is to supplement our partner school program, but the buses can be used for other things, not just that, so they will have a long-term use for us. We then had 2 contracts with S.J. Thomas Company, one for Gladwin and one for Penn Valley. Both are roof repairs, adding a coating to make the roofs last longer. We had a contract as well for Starlight Productions for BC Middle School Auditorium to add a projector for $24,400. One thing I want to say that the buses were done under a competitive bid through our process, but the 2 roofing contracts and the Starlight were done through the Keystone Purchasing Network, Easy IQC, and CoStar's program. Both of these are consortiums bidding done through state, the Commonwealth. They do the administration, they get the vendors, they do the bidding, and they tell us who the winner is. So it was bid, it just doesn't look that way because we only get the winner. We then reviewed and approved the contract with Mobilease to put temporaries at Penn Win for approximately $1.1 million. We then had 3 contracts with E+, one for bulk services. This is to help migrate our servers over onto the new hardware we just purchased. One is for switch replacement. We had switches put in back in 07, 08. They're nearing their end of useful life. And one is an uninterrupted power supply revitalization. Again, that was put in 06, 07, nearing its end of useful life. This is a revitalization versus a replacement, which would cost approximately $120,000, but we're doing this for $40,000. We have a renewal contract for Visual Sound, which is a software package for laptop and tablet use for teachers. We reviewed and approved a contract with InfoSnap. This is the program we've been using for years to allow registration and emergency contact information from parents. We then reviewed a contract with Box Clever for box data system for 3 years. Believe it or not, occasionally our buses break down or get caught behind traffic and students are wondering where their bus is. This will allow us to push out messages, you know, your bus 47, so-and-so is running 10 minutes late. This will greatly improve our communications with our parents and guardians and reduce the calls into our transportation department. We then reviewed the contracts out of curriculum, the Brain Pop Center for Responsive Schools and Easter Seals. We reviewed and approved an amendment to a work order for Frank Tavani for additional traffic studies at Penn Win. We reviewed and approved a contract with Reynolds Construction to oversee the installation of the temporaries at Penn Win. We also reviewed a second contract for them, Reynolds, to extend their use at Welsh Valley, as we have not yet closed that out. There were no change orders this month, so that was very good for us. We also did discuss closing out Welsh Valley, temporary classrooms at Penn Win, which I will not go into, but we also discussed DAO, which I do want to go into a little more detail. Since 2013, with enrollment growth, we've been talking about moving students over from the main high school into the 3rd and 2nd floor of DAO. In late 2015 through now, we've been reviewing plans and proposed schedules for the DAO renovation. Reynolds Constructions has been working with the administration to finalize the procurement of materials and labor through the KPN Easy IQC system. Current estimates for this construction project are between $5.2 and $5.5 million. At this moment in time, we're still working on getting initial pricing, hopefully by April 1st, negotiate final pricing by April 8th, discuss and vote on the contracts here at the facilities and the full board on April 14th and then April 18th. If contracts are approved, file for permits with the township, and then hopefully begin work in May and June and work through the summer. And in September, we should have 5 new science classrooms on the 3rd floor ready to go. The remaining classrooms will then be completed throughout the year on second shift. The next meeting of facilities and purchase will be April 14th at 8:30. I got more.
Under the Business Office and Finance section, we have 3 items for approval. I will take them in one motion unless a board member would like me to separate any of those. Seeing that there are none, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the following agenda and action items: approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for February 2016, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof, and are all per the attachments.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Facilities and Operations, Mr. Driscoll went through all the items that were reviewed and on the agenda, so I'm going to take all items A through K in one motion, unless a board member would like me to separate any of those. Seeing there are none, the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following agenda action items. Award the bids for 2 new school buses, roof repairs at Gladwin Elementary and Penn Valley Elementary, and the installation of a projector in the auditorium at Ballackinwood Middle School. Approve the Reynolds Construction LLC agreement for construction management services to install temporary classrooms at Penwyn Elementary for a fee of $74,000. Approve the master agreement with InfoSnap in the amount of $24,580, subject to solicitor's review. Approve the contract for construction and lease a modular classroom building agreement with Mobile Lease Modular Space, Inc. in the amount of $614,803 plus $6,871 per month for a 24-month lease, and $30,480 for removal of the modular classrooms at Penwood Elementary School. Approve the Box Clever, Inc. agreement for the bus status system in the amount of $3,750 per year for a term of 3 years. Approve the bulk services agreement with E Plus Technology in accordance with the hourly schedule stated in the agreement. Approve Addendum 1 to the individual work order with F. Tavani and Associates, Inc., originally approved on December 8, 2015, for additional not-to-exceed fee of $4,600. Approve the E Plus Technologies, Inc. quote for catalyst system in the amount of $384,000. Approve the E Plus Technologies, Inc. quote for modular UPS revitalization services and materials in the amount of $40,043.58. Approve the visual sound proposal for Smart Notebook site license in the amount of $10,234. And approve the Reynolds Construction LLC proposal for an extended on-site construction management at the Welsh Valley Middle School's additions and alterations project for a not-to-exceed amount of $37,344, and they're all per the attachments.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now have the report of the Policy Committee by Ms. Robinson.
I'll keep this short as well. We discussed AR 206. This administrative regulation describes the process and plan for a concept called partner schooling. In action, this policy would allow students registering after a certain deadline to be determined by administration annually to be placed in a feeder school that may not be their home elementary school. This may or may not be a permanent change based on the wishes of the family involved. We anticipate that this will largely affect new student registrations into the district. Additional communications will go out to affected parties shortly, and there was a great deal of discussion about exactly how this policy would work and the wishes of the school board to maintain certain guidelines going forward. We had a report of the Title IX group. We received an update regarding the Title IX committees at each high school. The middle schools will also have a joint committee to address equity in after-school extracurricular activities. That'll be upcoming. We had an update from the Gender Expansive and Transgender group. We received an update regarding the work of the Gender Expansive and Transgender group, which has been working all year to come up with a policy and administrative regulations for the Lower Merion School District to provide equity and ensure non-discrimination. The administration and solicitor will incorporate the group's findings and input it into a draft policy and administrative regulation to be presented for discussion at the next policy committee meeting. And the next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, April 8th at 8:30 a.m. in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached revised 15-16 school year calendar. Are there questions? I have a quick question. What did we change?
Two things. There was an error that was pointed out at the end of the year. We had to clean up some extra days at the end of the year.
Okay.
Probably the most significant change is that we've moved our Staff Development Day so that it coincides with Primary Day in the spring. That way, there'll be no students in the buildings when we have voting for Primary Day.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve? So moved. There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have audience recognition. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me, you missed the 2016-17 school year calendar was also
Oh, I'm
revised.
sorry. We need, the new one. Okay, got it. Thank you, Ms. LaPera. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached revised 16-17 school year calendar. Are there questions?
That's the one I just discussed.
That's what you talked about. Right, I thought it was the same calendar. My apologies. So, questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Could we just highlight the change to this year's calendar since we're talking about it?
This was end of the year.
I think it was the changes from the emergency closing days. They have to be board approved. So it was September 25th was for the Pope's visit, and then there was an inclement weather day, I believe, right?
Correct, and just to clarify, that only affects staff,
Okay.
professional staff. It's
Right,
not
the total
a
number of
change
days,
for
right.
students
We
and,
didn't have any days or anything.
correct.
Okay. I have to shock my son because there's an extra day of school.
You should be thrilled to have an extra day of school.
Well.
I would be thrilled.
Okay, so now, audience recognition. I want to thank those that stayed around to speak on non-agenda items or agenda items at this point. If you could come and sign in with Ms. LaPera, again, a 3-minute limit, and if you could give us your full name and approximately where you reside in the district.
Hi, I'm Danny Moraine. I live in Wynwood. I wanted to address some of the budget issues that have been ongoing and before you. This is kind of an unusual thing for me when I come to the school board meetings. Usually I'm here to talk about traffic or the equality of Harridan versus Lower Merion. However, you know, when we do have disagreements between us in the public and the board, I think that you know, we passionately discuss these things, but then I truly believe that you as board members all have the best interest of the children of Lower Merion at heart, and so do I. And I think that is a very important thing. And so in this different position that I find myself today, I want to actually give my strong support to you as a board and to you as individuals. I want to thank you for your volunteer service to our community and for your continuing and important work in spite of what I consider to be rhetoric and accusations of fraud brought by this class action lawsuit and some of the discussions that have gone on here. I can tell you, and I can tell the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas, that as a member of that class, an unwitting member of that class, I want nothing to do with that lawsuit. Furthermore, I believe that the lawsuit is not about taxes, and I think this is the really important point. This is not about the fact that the millage rate in Lower Merion is actually exactly average for Montgomery County. This is not about the fact that the millage rate in Lower Merion is actually in the bottom quartile of millage rates. This is about the fact that there's a group that I believe is motivated to dismantle the public education system that tries to level the playing field for all. It is ideologically motivated and wrong. The idea is to slowly starve the school of funds, thereby forcing the board to make very large increases every few years and borrow money until the only choices left is to cut education. I loathe to think what will happen to our democracy if we return to an education system where access is divided by class, language, ability, race, and religion. I implore you to be strong and do what is right for all the citizens, especially those who cannot afford private education. And as Lyndon Johnson said, every child must be encouraged to get as much education as he has the ability to take. We want this not for our sake, or their sake, but for the nation's sake. Nothing matters more to the future of our country, not military preparedness for armed might is worthless if we lack the brainpower to build a world of peace, not our productive economy, for we cannot sustain growth without trained manpower, not our democratic system of government, for freedom is fragile if citizens are ignorant. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Beth Roberts.
Hi, Beth Roberts from Bala-Cynwyd. I want to thank the board for this opportunity to speak. Parents representing 50% of the girls' varsity basketball have made official complaints. I feel this is a significant amount. I feel it is self-validating. We want a positive experience for our girls. We want to refocus energy and efforts on developing skills and good sportsmanship. We would like proactive coaching. We struggle to retain upperclassmen. Currently, we're going into our future with only 2 seniors. The girls' basketball program at Lower Merion has not made significant improvement in 10 years compared to the rest of the Central League. We would like development programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Waldron.
Hi, my name's Lee Waldron, Marion Station. I have 6 children who've attended LM systems. Now I actually have 3. They happen to be triplet girls. They're 16. I'm here this evening to talk about sports, specifically about Lower Merion's women's basketball program. You're dumb. Well, when you hear those words and others like it from a coach and you're a 16-year-old girl, how does that make you feel? For me, the use of that word by any coach succinctly characterizes the underlying sentiment of Lower Merion's women's basketball coaching staff. No matter what the school board may have been told by the administration about the basketball program, the use of that word speaks volumes to me. You're dumb. It demonstrates that the atmosphere of disrespect towards talented young women. It speaks to a program that skirts many Title IX issues and carries with it a condescending arrogance by its staff. Many parents, not just 1 or 2, have reached out to representatives of the administration only to hear a common response, well, that's the first time I've heard about that. As parents representing perhaps half the varsity team, are we too dumb to let this program continue in its present state? We are not. If the school board continues to review and not act to rectify a needed change to the women's basketball program and its present coaching staff, it jeopardizes the future souls of goodly amount of young women. This team of girls needs better. The many concerned parents demand better. The school system should want better. Thank you.
Is there another speaker? Okay, so I want to thank the parents that spoke regarding the concerns with the varsity basketball team. And the administration takes these concerns very seriously, as does the board. And we have asked the administration to look into these issues. And I'm not sure if you want to speak to that at all at this point. Okay, all right.
I did want to respond
right,
way back because Mrs. Jenkin mentioned something, and I neglected to discuss it, and it had to do with the kindergarten center. The issue with busing and transportation with the kindergarten center is this. So you pick up students at a bus stop, and they're going to Marion Elementary School, for example. They would then, if they're picked up at the same bus stop, would have to go on to the kindergarten center. Or they'd first go to the kindergarten center and then go to Marion. So somebody's going to be on the bus for an extended period of time. So to alleviate that, you'd have to have a fourth tier of busing. That's one of the reasons why we at least pointed out to the board that there would be extra operational costs with the kindergarten center.
Right. Amy Brooks from Whistler Pearlstein.
In accordance with the Sunshine Act, the Board of School Directors met in executive session on Monday, March 7th, and the topic discussed was personnel and land development, and the executive session also met today, Monday, March 14th, also topic personnel and land development.
Thank you. Our upcoming meeting dates are as follows. March 16th, Communications, 8:30 a.m. March 16th, Finance Committee, 7 p.m. March 30th, Legislative, 8:30 a.m. April 4th, Curriculum, 8:30 a.m. April 8th, Policy, 8:30 a.m. April 11th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting, 8 p.m. April 14th, Facilities and Purchasing, 8:30 a.m. April 18th, Regular Board Business Meeting, 8 p.m. And with that, thank you for staying as long as you have, and we are adjourned.